Alright, so this Knife Thoughts video is going to be about this knife and really this run of knives. So this is a Great Eastern Cutlery number 86 2AB, and I'm also going to be showing another version of the 2AB, the version in red and black linen micarta, and then another Barlow that they made on this run, which is the BladeForums Spring Street Barlow. But I'm going to focus on this one because this is the one that I am carrying, using, have been since I got it, and I'm really enjoying it. So this is in rust orange natural bone. So it is dyed. The natural does not mean that it's, undyed. It means the texture. So it's not basically flattened, it's not smoothed out. It is polished, but you can see it has some texture or kind of topography to it. And I really like the look of it. I was really happy that this is what they went with for this, because I think it's just a very classic look. It really reminds me of the old school Case red bone knives. Case has some knives that are some of the more sought after and enjoyed vintage knives from Case in a red bone that I think is kind of similar. It's not exactly the same, but that this is reminiscent of that. So I like that, and I like Barlows. My first GEC was a TC Barlow, the 15, which is a smaller frame, but I like Barlows, and I think they make good using knives. Now, one thing, if you're not familiar with Barlows, what a Barlow is a knife that has an elongated bolster. I've seen it said that it's around a third of the length of the knife or the handle. I don't think that it really follows that convention super closely, or that all examples of a Barlow have a bolster that's a third of the length of the overall knife, but it's an elongated bolster as compared to a normal bolster. One thing with this Barlow, and a lot of Barlows, is it has this stamp. Now, a lot of people thought that this stamp should have been higher up on the bolster, so maybe just a few millimeters up, and I actually do agree with that. I think it would look a little bit better if the stamp was moved just slightly higher. I don't know if there's a reason why it wasn't, but for whatever reason it's pretty close down towards the bottom of the bolster there. But I still like the look of it, and the 2AB, which is what these were called, seems to mean 2 acorn Barlow, and you can see there's 2 acorns there with the oak leaf. And that goes along with the Great Eastern Cutlery brand, within Great Eastern Cutlery, the company. It goes along with their use of the acorn and the oak kind of motif. You can see that also around the GEC shield on the tube here. So I do like that, and I think it's kind of, just another example of some of the quirky things that GEC does, not actually saying that it's a Barlow on the production schedule, but rather calling it the 2AB. Now, the blade is a really classic clip point, pretty much as classic as it gets. Now, when I first got this, I didn't think it was a problem, but when people saw these on, the production photos, they were worried and concerned about there being a recurve. When I first got it, it didn't seem like there was a recurve, but then when I was sharpening it, it seemed like maybe there was somewhat of a recurve. It got a spot around here where it was kind of, the sharpening was wearing down more there, and I think that was because I was not sharpening it as if it had a recurve. And then I actually did try to sharpen that recurve out, so you can't see it on this one here, but I don't like recurves on knives. I thought when I first got it that it was just that the edge was canted downward from the handle, which it definitely is, but I do think there was a slight recurve on it when I first got it. But other than that, it's a really classic clip point. I like it a lot, and it has this Practical Knives GEC etch, which I think is a nice etch, and I'm glad that it's an etch that I don't mind, being that it's a stainless knife, because the etch won't wear away like it would on a carbon knife. And speaking of that, this is stainless. It goes again along with the GEC branding, and I really like that for a user. Certainly I have no problem with carbon steel. GEC usually uses 1095. I use it a lot, but I do like stainless steel on a user. Just recently, like a couple minutes ago, I was using this to prepare some venison for canning, and getting blood and all that kind of stuff on it. It's nice to not have to wipe it off like literally immediately and worry about it getting rust. So some people don't like stainless on traditional knives. I do. I like both stainless and carbon, but these GEC normal run Barlows were stainless. So I do like that. Here is the tank stamp. The Cyclops Steelworks gives you, the clue that it's stainless, and it is 861121. So the 86 pattern or frame has a clip point blade, single blade, and it was made in 2021. As for the construction, it's really nice on this. I actually got two of these, ended up moving one along, but they were both really nice. The spring is slightly high at full open, as you can see, but other than that, no real issues. The bolsters are fitted well to the bone, or the bone to the bolsters or covers. Maybe some slight, like the ever slightest gaps here, but that's pretty typical. No gaps on the back spring, between the back spring and the liners at all that I can see, and the action is really, really nice. That's one thing about gradation cutlery. A wasp just landed on me. I'm filming this outside here. Still figuring out where I'm going to film at this new location, but wasp landed on me there. But one thing about gradation cutlery stainless is that it typically has a really, really nice action. For some reason, it just feels like smoother in the pivot than their carbon steel knives often do. So I'll show you that a couple times here. Just has kind of a glassy or buttery type feel to it. And I don't think that I actually ever put any oil on this. I've washed it a couple times, but haven't put any oil. And the pull is about a 5, maybe a 6, but closer to a 5 than a 6, I'd say. Maybe between, but towards the 5 end of the 5 and 6 there. So really, really nice knife. Now, I didn't get either of the other versions of the normal run Barlows that GEC made. They also made one in OD green micarta, and then this one in red and black linen micarta. I didn't get either of those because I knew that I was going to like the bone, but a friend, Dan, who has contributed to my channel several times, if you saw my recent Smoky Mountain Knife Works subscription box unboxing, the same Dan loaned this one to me. So I wanted to show it here just as another example, and honestly point out that I didn't think that I would like this red and black micarta, but it's actually really, really cool looking. I hadn't had a knife in this, and in person it looks a lot better than in pictures, like on the website and things like that. It is actually really cool looking. It has an interesting layered look. You can see the pattern or the fabric, I guess weave of the linen pretty well, and feels good too. It's smooth. It's kind of tacky but pretty smooth, and I think just is a lot cooler looking than I expected. Same deal here, no gaps, same pull. And one other thing I wanted to note, you can, or I can, pinch these. I think most people will be able to pinch these open, so that's a nice thing also. This one I would say is closer to a 6 than a 5, but still in that range. Same deal, well centered, no play, anything like that. So just nicely made knives. Now the last one that I'm going to show here is the BladeForums knife. If you're not familiar with BladeForums is a forum about knives, and there's a sub-forum dedicated to traditional knives. Now, BladeForums is really how I always have liked knives, but how I got into the knife community, you might say, and also how I first saw GEC, oddly enough, being that I grew up relatively close to the factory and such. But it's how I first heard about them. That said, I haven't been on BladeForums as much. Now, I meet the criteria for being able to buy this and everything. I've got, a lot of posts on BladeForums, but I don't really go on a whole lot anymore, and the reasons for that, I'm thinking about doing a video on BladeForums and my thoughts on it, but that's partly why I wasn't super involved in this year's forum knife. I didn't get last year's, but I thought I would get one to check it out, because it is a little different. So as you can see, it is a limited production run, 2021, has a little truck there, hemlock trucking, which goes with the saw cut hemlock bone, Spring Street and Caldwell Street. That's a little Easter egg for that's where GEC is in Titusville. And Spring Street, you know, that's why it's named that. And here is a little write-up. Now, I'm sure I've interacted with Miko, but I'm not familiar with them. But you can read this if you'd like. There was a lot of, you know, challenges to this knife being made, obviously, with everything that's been going on. And I think that the process was worse this year than normal, too, even for those who, you know, are on BladeForums a lot. But I'll show you this here. So the differences are that, of course, it has this hemlock saw cut bone, which is a reddish color, red and really black on the saw cut area, which actually makes sense because hemlock, you know, it's actually a reddish color under and on the bark. So that's probably why it's called hemlock. But the saw cut is not super heavy, but you can definitely see it there. I think that it looks good. It's not my favorite, you know, bone color or finishing. The other difference is that it has these lined rat tail bolsters. So you can see it has this shaping here, which is rat tail bolster. A lot of people really like those. I think that they are kind of fancy looking. I'm not like a huge fan of it, and not necessarily, I guess I don't dislike it, but it's not something I look for, you know, in particular. And then finally, the other difference is that this is actually not stainless. It's carbon steel. You can see it doesn't have an etch, but it is carbon steel. So another difference there. Pretty much the same on the construction, you know, no gaps. This one actually doesn't seem to be high at full open. The spring doesn't seem to be high at full open. It's well centered, sits, you know, the tip sits within the frame, which I always really appreciate. Good action, same, about a 6. And you can hear the difference. It's weird how you can hear, and I hope you can hear, I can feel the difference between the stainless action and the carbon action. But I just wanted to show this one off here. The price of all of these knives from the places I got them was just over $100, between 100 and 110, I believe. Same deal with this one. So I think a good value. I really like particularly this one because it's stainless and I've really enjoyed using it. And I think that these are going to go down as a really cool knife from GEC. They haven't done a stainless Barlow before, except for the 25. So I guess they have done one, but not recently. So, you know, this is the first time in a long time they've done a stainless Barlow, and this is the first Barlow on the 86 frame. So I really enjoy this knife. I'm going to keep carrying and using it, and I'm glad that they made a stainless Barlow and a Barlow on the 86 frame. So again, thanks to Dan for loaning the red and black linen micarta one, and I hope you've enjoyed getting to check these knives out. I know I've enjoyed getting to check them out. If you have enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. You can also subscribe and click the bell so you know when I post new videos. Go check out my social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook at Knife Thoughts, and my website, knifethoughts.com, where I post articles on knives like this and knife-related topics. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.